So what we are watching in Ukraine now is actually the result of more than a year's worth of work and investment. Small and large and medium-sized Ukrainian drone companies all working to change the way Ukraine fights the war. And the result that we've seen in the last couple of months is beginning to culminate. So the Ukrainians have cut off land and ferry links to Crimea. They've made it impossible for the Crimeans the people who live in Crimea to have access to fuel. Food is running short. They have forced the Russians to move a lot of air defense away from the front line towards Moscow, because recently they've been able to hit a couple of big targets in Moscow, including the major oil refinery there. There are now oil shortages, gasoline shortages rather, all over Russia. You're beginning to see Russians talk about them on social media, which was not the case before, often in a very weird way, saying, there's something strange. We can't get petrol. I wonder why. Nobody's explaining to the Russians exactly why this is happening, but we are beginning to see, as I said, this is effect of Ukraine's decision a couple of years ago to invest in its own drone industry. It's also thanks to European money, not U.S. money. The U.S. has not been investing in Ukraine for the last year, and it's mostly Ukrainian technology, as I said, European money that have created what is really a pretty important shift in the battlefield momentum.
And this is David Ignatius. I'm just wondering what sense you have about the effect of this stepped-up, well-planned Ukrainian campaign on Vladimir Putin and on the basis of support for him in Moscow. Do you get a sense that there's greater fragmentation among Russians as they look at increasingly the damage that this war is causing for Russia itself?
There's clearly an enormous amount of discontent, and we know already that there are people inside the Russian elite who dislike the war, want the war to be over. A few months ago, a kind of presentation leaked from the Kremlin, and this was had been put together by a team inside the Kremlin who were trying to propose a way to sell the end of the war on the current front lines, or approximately, as a great victory for Russia. So in other words, there are some people who are thinking about how to end the war and how to explain it to the Russian public. And we have to assume there are also people inside the mix who want the war to keep going, who might want to accelerate it. That can't be excluded. But there's now a clear battle for influence over the president, and as clear as there can be in a state where so much is controlled and where people are afraid to speak the truth. There's a ripple of discontent that seems very authentic moving across the society. As I said, this could result in Putin looking for a way out. It could also result in him looking to change the subject, attack a NATO ally, test the NATO alliance. We'll see.
And are we starting to see European leaders recalculate how best to deal with Donald Trump in order to get the best possible? The thing that always held them up, of course, was Ukraine. They were worried that if they criticized Donald Trump too much, they wouldn't get much for Ukraine. And this week, we've seen two rather different pictures. We saw Giorgia Meloni stand up and say, I don't beg, Italy doesn't beg, this is a ridiculous way to treat your allies, and by the way, why are you accommodating your enemies so much? And then yesterday we saw Mark Rutte in the Oval Office with kind of gold-plated charts trying to make the case for Europe, but in a way that was incredibly flattering of Donald Trump. What's the feeling in Europe at the moment about the best way to handle this administration and to handle the United States right now?
So I think Meloni's statement reflects the view of many leaders. In other words, Europeans get it now that Donald Trump isn't interested in their security, that he hasn't helped Ukraine, that Ukraine, as it turns out, was able, together with Europe, to defend itself, even maybe to turn the tide of the war. We'll see. And although everyone understands what Mark Rutte is doing, he's the Secretary General of NATO. He wants to avoid a big break. There's a big NATO summit coming up. I don't think that method of dealing with Trump is now perceived to be effective.